Wild baby dragon remains by human woman's side. 24/7. The morning sun painted the crystal forests of Veridac 7 in shades of purple and gold. Dr. Jiwoo Park walked carefully through the sharp terrain, her scanner beeping softly in her hand. She had been on this alien planet for 6 months now, studying the wildlife for the Galactic Council. Most days were peaceful and boring. Today would be different. Jiwoo heard the sound first, a wet crackling noise that made her stomach turn. She pushed through a cluster of blue ferns and stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. Bodies lay everywhere. Large creatures with scales that shimmered like jewels were scattered across the clearing. Their wings were torn. Their necks were bent at wrong angles. Blood soaked into the strange purple grass. Dragons, Jiwoo whispered. She had seen them flying in the distance before. The locals called them Valkyries. Beautiful creatures that hunted in the mountains and nested in the high cliffs. Now they were dead. All of them dead. She activated her comm device. Taemin, I need you to see this. Sending coordinates now. What did you find? Her research partner's voice crackled through the speaker. A massacre. Looks like poachers. The Vrek Syndicate probably. Don't touch anything. I'm coming with security. But Jiwoo was already moving closer. Her training as a xenobiologist pushed her forward. She needed to document this. She needed to understand what happened. As she stepped over a fallen tree, she heard it. A small sound, a whimper. Jiwoo froze. She turned her head slowly. There, hidden under the wing of the largest dragon, something moved. She approached carefully and lifted the massive wing. Underneath was a tiny creature no bigger than a house cat. Its scales shifted between green and blue colors. Its eyes were bright and filled with fear. Blood covered one of its small legs. Oh no, Jiwoo breathed. You're just a baby. The creature tried to crawl away but collapsed. Jiwoo could see the wound on its leg more clearly now. Deep cuts from some kind of net or trap. She looked around the clearing again. The poachers had killed the adults and tried to capture the young ones. This little one had somehow survived by hiding. Jiwoo knew the rules. Galactic protocols were clear. No interference with indigenous species. No emotional attachment. Document and report only. But as she looked at the tiny dragon shaking with fear and pain, she couldn't walk away. She wouldn't walk away. I'm not going to hurt you, she said softly. She knew the creature couldn't understand her words, but maybe it would understand her tone. She slowly reached into her medical kit and pulled out a scanner. The baby dragon's eyes followed her movements. Jiwoo worked quickly. She cleaned the wound and applied synthetic skin. The healing gel would help it recover in a few days. The baby dragon made small chirping sounds but didn't try to bite her. When she finished, she sat back on her heels. There, all better. The dragon looked at her with those bright eyes. Then it did something unexpected. It crawled forward and pressed its small head against her knee. Jiwoo felt warmth spread through her chest. Not physical warmth, but something deeper. An emotional connection that made her eyes sting with tears. Jiwoo, what are you doing? Taemin's voice made her jump. He stood at the edge of the clearing with 2 security officers. His face showed shock and concern. Step away from that creature right now. It's hurt. It's the only survivor. That doesn't matter. You know the rules. We need to call this in and let the containment team handle it. Jiwoo picked up the baby dragon carefully. It weighed almost nothing. It curled against her chest and made a soft purring sound. I'm not leaving it here to die. Jiwoo, be reasonable. That thing is going to grow into an apex predator. Look at the size of these adults. They could tear a human apart. This one won't. Jiwoo didn't know how she knew that, but she did. The connection she felt was real. The baby dragon had chosen to trust her. She wouldn't betray that trust. One of the security officers spoke up. Dr. Park, Commander Kang gave specific orders. No interaction with the Valkyries. They're too dangerous. This isn't a Valkyrie anymore. Jiwoo held the baby closer. This is an orphan that needs help. I'm taking it back to my quarters, Taemin shook his head. You're making a huge mistake. Kang will never allow this, he was right. Commander Yoon Seo Kang was strict about following galactic protocols. The research station operated under her rules, and her rules were absolute. But Jiwoo couldn't think about that now. She looked down at the small creature in her arms. Its scales sparkled in the sunlight like stars. I'll call you Biol, she said quietly. It means star. The baby dragon chirped and nuzzled closer to her. Back at the research station, Jiwoo tried to keep Biol hidden in her quarters. It didn't work. The baby dragon cried whenever she left. loud piercing cries that echoed through the corridors. When she returned, Biol would rush to her and climb up her leg, desperate to be close. The dragon followed her everywhere. To the lab, to the cafeteria, even to the bathroom door where it would wait outside making worried sounds. Other researchers started to notice. Some thought it was cute. Others reported her to Commander Kang. 3 days after the rescue, Kang summoned Jiwoo to her office. Biol came too because leaving the dragon alone was impossible now. Commander Kang was a tall woman with sharp eyes and no patience for rule breakers. She looked at Jiwoo and then at the baby dragon sitting at her feet. Biol stared back at her without fear. "Dr. Park, what exactly do you think you're doing?" "Saving a life, Commander. You're violating multiple protocols. Emotional attachment to study subjects is forbidden. Keeping indigenous creatures in residential areas is forbidden. Creating potential safety hazards is forbidden." Kang counted the violations on her fingers.
Need I go on?
"Biol isn't a safety hazard. That creature will grow to be 3 tons of muscle, claws, and plasma breath. The adult Valkyrians we've observed can melt through steel. How is that not dangerous?" Jiwoo felt Biol press against her leg. The dragon was afraid of Kang's harsh tone. She reached down and stroked its head. "Biol won't hurt anyone."
I know it. You don't know anything.
"You're projecting human emotions onto an alien predator." Kang's voice was cold. "I'm ordering you to hand over the creature to our containment facilities. Scientists can study it there. If it survives, we'll release it back into the wild when it's older." "No." The word hung in the air. Several other officers in the room gasped. No one said no to Commander Kang. Kang's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" "I said no. Biol stays with me. Dr. Park, I can have you arrested for insubordination. Then arrest me." Jiwoo picked up Biol. The dragon weighed more now after 3 days of eating. It wrapped its small tail around her arm. "But I'm not abandoning this creature. It's already lost everything. I won't let it lose the only family it has left." "I am your family?" Kang's laugh was bitter. "It's an animal. If you really believe that, then you're not as smart as everyone says you are." The room went silent. Kang's face turned red. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Kang pressed a button on her desk. "Security, escort Dr. Park to confinement. She is relieved of duty effective immediately." 2 guards stepped forward, but before they could reach Jiwoo, Biol did something amazing. The baby dragon's scales began to glow. Soft light pulsed from its body in waves. The light filled the room with colors that didn't have names. Everyone froze, mesmerized by the display. In that moment of distraction, Jiwoo made her choice. She ran. She bolted from the office with Biol clutched to her chest. Alarms began to sound behind her, but she didn't stop. She raced through the corridors to the vehicle bay. She knew the codes. She knew the systems. Within minutes, she had powered up a terrain rover and was racing out of the station into the wilderness. Behind her, the research station grew smaller. Ahead of her, the crystal forests stretched endlessly. She had no plan. No supplies beyond what was in the rover. No idea what she would do next. But Biol chirped happily from the passenger seat, its scales still glowing faintly. The baby dragon wasn't afraid. It trusted her completely. That trust was worth more than any career, any protocol, any rule. Jiwoo drove deeper into the wilderness as the sun set on Veridax 7. She was a fugitive now, but she wasn't alone. The wild baby dragon would stay by her side and she would stay by its side. No matter what came next, they would face it together. Wild baby dragon remains by human woman's side. 24 to 7, 3 months passed like a strange dream. Jiwoo had found shelter in an abandoned mining facility deep in the mountains. The old building was falling apart, but it kept out the rain and the cold night winds. More importantly, it kept them hidden from the search parties. Biol had grown. The baby dragon was now as large as a big dog, with wings that could actually lift it off the ground for short flights. Its scales had darkened to a deeper blue-green color and small horns were beginning to show on its head. But despite the changes, one thing remained the same. Biol never left Jiwoo's side. Every morning, Jiwoo woke to find the dragon curled around her sleeping bag. Every meal, Biol sat close by, watching with intelligent eyes. When Jiwoo went to gather water from the nearby stream, Biol followed. When she needed to fix the solar panels on the roof, Biol waited below, making worried chirping sounds until she came down safely. The bond between them had deepened in ways Jiwoo couldn't fully explain. Sometimes she would think about being hungry, and Biol would immediately bring her whatever food it had caught. If she felt sad thinking about her old life, Biol would press its head against her and make comforting rumbling sounds. It was like the dragon could read her emotions. Jiwoo spent hours documenting everything in her personal log. She recorded Biol's sounds, its behaviors, the way it communicated through body language. The more she observed, the more convinced she became that Valkyrians were not just animals. They were intelligent, maybe even sapient. One evening, Jiwoo sat by the fire trying to solve a problem. The solar panels weren't producing enough power. She needed to rewire the system, but she couldn't figure out the right configuration. She drew diagrams in the dirt with a stick, muttering to herself. Biol watched her for a while. Then the dragon picked up another stick in its mouth and drew too. Jiwoo stared in shock. Biol had created a simple but clear diagram showing a different way to connect the wires, a way that might actually work. "Did you just help me solve this?" Jiwoo whispered. Biol chirped and tilted its head. The next day, Jiwoo tried the dragon's solution. It worked perfectly. The solar panels now produced twice as much power. That night, Jiwoo couldn't sleep. She lay in her sleeping bag staring at the ceiling. Biol was intelligent. Really, truly intelligent. If she could prove that, if she could show the Galactic Council that Valkyrians were sapient beings, they would have to protect this planet. No more mining, no more poaching. The species would be safe. But how could she prove it when she was hiding in the wilderness like a criminal? The answer came in the form of a visitor. Jiwoo was outside checking the water filtration system when Biol suddenly stood up. The dragon's scales began to glow and it made a low warning sound. Something was coming. Jiwoo grabbed the makeshift weapon she had crafted from mining tools. A figure emerged from the trees. A human man in military uniform. He raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "Dr. Park, I'm Lieutenant Hae-sung Kim from the Terran Defense Corps. I'm here alone. I just want to talk." "How did you find me?" Jiwoo kept her weapon raised. Biol moved to stand between her and the stranger. "I've been tracking you for 2 weeks. I have to say you're good at hiding, but that's not why I'm here." Hae-sung slowly lowered his hands. "I was sent to bring you back, but after watching you and your dragon for the past few days, I don't think I can do that." "Why not?" "Because what you two have is extraordinary. I grew up on Earth in a small village in Korea. My grandmother taught me that all living beings deserve respect. That intelligence comes in many forms. When I watch how you and that dragon interact, I see something the Galactic Council refuses to acknowledge. Friendship, partnership, maybe even love." Jiwoo felt tears in her eyes. It had been so long since anyone understood. "His name is Biol." "Biol," Hae-sung repeated, smiling. "A good name." He looked at the dragon. "You're loyal to her, aren't you? You could leave any time. Fly away, but you choose to stay." Biol made a sound that was almost like agreement. The dragon's scales stopped glowing. It could sense that Hae-sung wasn't a threat. "Why are you really here?" Jiwoo asked. Hae-sung's face grew serious. "Because things are getting worse. The Galactic Council has approved resource extraction on Veridax 7. They plan to start mining operations in 6 months. The Valkyrian habitats will be destroyed, and the Vrex Syndicate is still hunting. They killed another family of dragons last week." Jiwoo felt sick. "We have to stop them." "We can't. Not without proof that the Valkyrians are sapient. Animal protection laws won't help. But sapient species protection laws are absolute. If you can prove these dragons are intelligent, everything changes. I have 3 months of documentation. Biol can solve problems, understands complex concepts, shows emotional intelligence beyond any animal I've studied." That might not be enough. The Council has high standards for sapience classification. They need to see communication, culture, art, something that proves consciousness beyond survival instincts. Jiwoo looked at Biol. The dragon was staring at her with those bright, knowing eyes. "Then we need to find other Valkyrians. If I can observe them in their natural groups, I can find that proof. That's dangerous. Wild adult Valkyrians are extremely territorial. They've attacked research teams before. Baeol will protect me, and maybe Baeol can communicate with them, help them understand I'm not a threat. Haesung was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll help you, but we need to move fast. Commander Kang has doubled the search efforts, and the Vrek Syndicate is getting bolder. Over the next week, Haesung brought supplies and equipment. He also brought news from the research station. Taemin had been asking about Jiwoo. Some researchers supported what she had done. Others thought she was crazy. Commander Kang had placed a bounty on her return, but it was clear the commander wanted Jiwoo brought back safely, not harmed. Jiwoo and Haesung planned their expedition carefully. They studied satellite images to find areas where Valkyrians had been spotted. They prepared equipment for recording and documentation. And they trained, because traveling through the wilderness of Veridax 7 was not safe. Throughout all the preparation, Baeol stayed close to Jiwoo. The dragon had grown even larger now. Its wings were strong enough for sustained flight. But it still followed Jiwoo everywhere. Still slept curled around her. Still brought her food and guarded her while she worked. One night Haesung sat by the fire with them. He watched as Baeol rested its head on Jiwoo's lap while she scratched behind its horns. My grandmother used to say that dogs are the only creatures that love their humans more than they love themselves, Haesung said quietly. But I think she was wrong. I think any being capable of love can make that choice. Your dragon has chosen you, Dr. Park, completely and totally. I've chosen Baeol too, Jiwoo replied. I gave up everything for this dragon, my career, my reputation, my safety, and I'd do it again without hesitation. Baeol made a soft rumbling sound and pressed closer to her. The next morning, they prepared to leave the mining facility. As Jiwoo packed the last of their supplies, alarms suddenly blared from Haesung's equipment. Multiple signals were approaching fast. We've got company, Haesung said, checking his scanner. 5 vehicles, closing in from the east. The research station? Jiwoo asked. No. These signatures are wrong. I think it's the Vrek Syndicate. Jiwoo's blood ran cold. The poachers had found them. Baeol immediately moved to the entrance of the facility, scales glowing bright with warning. The dragon sensed the danger. We need to run, Haesung said. There's no time. They're too close. Jiwoo grabbed her weapon. We fight. You're not a soldier, Dr. Park. No, but I'm a woman with something to protect. She looked at Baeol. And so is my dragon. The vehicles burst through the tree line. Armed figures in black armor jumped out. The leader, a reptilian alien with cold yellow eyes, pointed at Baeol. There it is. The juvenile. Take it alive. Kill the humans if they resist. Jiwoo and Haesung took cover behind equipment. Baeol stood in the open, facing the poachers. The dragon was outnumbered and outgunned, but it didn't back down. It wouldn't run. Because running meant leaving Jiwoo behind. Energy nets flew through the air. Baeol dodged and weaved, faster than Jiwoo had ever seen. The dragon's scales glowed brighter, and its mouth began to smoke. Jiwoo realized what was about to happen. Baeol, no, you're too young. But the dragon didn't listen. Baeol opened its mouth, and for the first time, true plasma breath erupted. Not a puff of smoke or a small burst. A sustained, powerful blast of superheated energy that melted the ground and forced the poachers to scatter. The blast lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough. Baeol collapsed, exhausted from the effort. Jiwoo ran to the dragon's side, ignoring the danger. She wrapped her arms around Baeol's neck. You idiot. You brave, wonderful idiot. Haesung used the distraction to target the poachers' vehicles. His military training showed as he disabled their engines one by one. The leader of the Vrek Syndicate realized they were losing and ordered a retreat. This isn't over, the reptilian shouted as they fled. That dragon is worth millions. We'll be back. As the vehicles disappeared into the forest, Jiwoo held Baeol tight. The dragon was breathing hard, scales dim with exhaustion. But it was alive. We can't stay here anymore, Hae-sung said. Wild baby dragon remains by human woman's side. 24/7 2 months of travel had changed everything. Jiwoo's hands were rough with calluses. Her clothes were patched and worn, but her eyes were bright with purpose. Beside her, Byul had grown into something magnificent. The dragon was now the size of a horse, with wings that could carry it for hours and scales that shimmered like liquid metal. Yet despite its size and power, Byul still followed Jiwoo like a shadow. They had crossed mountains and rivers. They had survived storms and predators. Through it all, Byul never strayed more than a few meters from Jiwoo's side. At night, the dragon would curl its body around her tent to keep her warm. During the day, it would fly ahead to scout for danger, but always returned within minutes as if being apart caused physical pain. Hae-sung walked behind them, carrying equipment and supplies. He had proven to be a loyal friend. More than once, his military training had saved their lives. But even he was amazed by the bond between woman and dragon. "We're close," Hae-sung said, checking his scanner. The satellite images show a large concentration of Valkyrians about 5 kilometers ahead. In a canyon system. Jiwoo felt her heart race. This was it. The proof they needed was somewhere in that canyon. She looked at Byul, who had stopped walking and was staring toward the canyon. The dragon's scales were pulsing with light. It could sense its own kind nearby. "Are you ready?" Jiwoo asked softly. Byul made a low sound. Not quite a chirp anymore. The dragon's voice had deepened as it matured, but Jiwoo understood. "Yes, always ready when you're with me." They approached the canyon carefully. As they reached the edge, Jiwoo gasped. Below them stretched a massive network of caves and ledges. Dozens of Valkyrians moved through the space. Some flew in graceful patterns through the air. Others rested on rocky outcroppings. Young dragons played together, their scales flashing in the sunlight. "It's beautiful," Jiwoo whispered. But before she could take another step, a massive shadow fell over them. Jiwoo looked up to see the largest Valkyrian she had ever encountered. The dragon was at least 10 meters long, with scars covering its body and eyes that burned with intelligence and suspicion. This was clearly the leader, the matriarch. The matriarch landed between them and the canyon. It opened its mouth, showing teeth the size of Jiwoo's forearm. The message was clear: "Go away. You are not welcome here." Byul immediately stepped in front of Jiwoo. The young dragon was tiny compared to the matriarch, but it didn't back down. Byul's scales glowed bright with defensive energy. "Byul, don't," Jiwoo said. "She'll kill you," but Byul didn't move. The young dragon began to make sounds. Not the chirps and rumbles Jiwoo was used to. These were deeper, more complex. Resonant frequencies that seemed to vibrate in Jiwoo's chest. Byul was trying to communicate with the matriarch. The matriarch tilted her massive head. She made sounds back. A conversation was happening. Jiwoo watched in awe as her dragon spoke with the elder. She couldn't understand the words, but she could feel the emotion. Byul was explaining, defending, asking for understanding. The matriarch's eyes shifted to Jiwoo. The dragon studied her with an intensity that made Jiwoo feel naked. It was like the matriarch was looking into her soul, judging her worth. After what felt like forever, the matriarch made a final sound. Then she turned and walked into the canyon. But she didn't attack. She didn't chase them away. "The path was open. What just happened?" Hae-sung asked, his voice shaking. "Byul introduced me," Jiwoo said. "As family." They descended into the canyon slowly. Every Valkyrian they passed stopped to watch them. Some made threatening sounds. Others simply stared. But none attacked. Byul stayed pressed against Jiwoo's side, its body tense and ready to fight if needed. As they went deeper into the canyon, Jiwoo began to notice things. Strange markings on the cave walls. Patterns that seemed too deliberate to be random. She activated her camera and started recording everything. A voice called out from one of the caves. A human voice. "You made it past the matriarch." "That's impressive." A woman emerged from the shadows. She was thin and weathered, with long black hair tied back. Her clothes were made from some kind of animal hide. She looked like she had been living in the wilderness for years. "Who are you?" Jiwoo asked. "Dr. Sujin Lee. I was part of the original survey team that discovered this planet. That was over a year ago." Sujin looked at Byul with soft eyes. "And you're the human with the honor-bonded dragon." "I've heard the rumors." "Honor-bonded?" Sujin smiled. "Come, let me show you what I've learned." She led them deeper into the cave system. The walls were covered with glowing patterns. Sujin pointed to them. The Valkyries create these with secretions from their scales. At first I thought it was territorial marking. But then I realized the patterns have meaning. Look at this one. It shows the migration of prey animals across the seasons. And this one shows the history of their colony going back generations. Jiwoo moved closer, her scientific mind racing. This is art, historical record, evidence of culture. It's more than that, Sujin said. The Valkyries have a concept they call honor bonds. When they find a being they respect, a being whose spirit matches their own, they form a permanent connection. They choose to stay with that being. Not as a pet or servant, but as an equal. As family. By all, Jiwoo breathed. Your dragon has honor bonded with you. That's why it won't leave your side. That's why it defended you against the matriarch. In Valkyrian culture, abandoning an honor bond is the greatest shame. Death before dishonor. Jiwoo felt tears run down her face. She knelt beside Biol and wrapped her arms around the dragon's neck. You chose me, truly chose me. Biol rumbled and pressed closer. There's something else, Sujin continued. I've studied dozens of species across the galaxy. I've seen attempts to domesticate, train, and control various intelligent creatures. But only humans have successfully formed honor bonds with Valkyries. Every other species that tried either gave up or was attacked. Why? Haesung asked. Because honor bonds require something special. Complete trust. Unconditional loyalty. The willingness to sacrifice everything for each other. Most species can't offer that. They want to control or use the dragons. But humans, when we truly love something, we love with our whole hearts. We'll die for those we care about. The Valkyries sense that. They recognize kindred spirits. Jiwoo spent the next hours documenting everything. She recorded the cave paintings. She filmed Valkyries teaching their young to fly. She captured footage of their coordinated hunting strategies. She documented their mathematical understanding through geometric light patterns they created during evening gatherings. As the sun began to set, the canyon filled with light. All the Valkyries gathered on the central ledge. They began to glow, their scales creating waves of color that flowed through the group. It was like watching a symphony made of light. Each dragon contributed its own pattern, but together they created something greater, something beautiful. What are they doing? Jiwoo whispered. Evening song, Sujin replied. Every night they share memories and emotions through bioluminescence. It's their form of storytelling. Community bonding, art. Biol began to glow too. The young dragon's light joined the greater pattern. And to Jiwoo's shock, images appeared in the light. Images of her. Images of their journey together. The rescue. The escape. The fight against the poachers. Biol was sharing their story with the colony. The matriarch approached. She looked at the images Biol created, then looked at Jiwoo. The great dragon made a sound that resonated through the canyon. One by one, the other Valkyries responded. It sounded almost like approval. Sujin smiled. You've been accepted. The matriarch has acknowledged your honor bond. In their eyes, you're not human anymore. You're dragon sister. That night, Jiwoo slept in the canyon with Biol curled around her. She felt safe for the first time in months. But the peace didn't last. She woke to the sound of alarms. Haesung was shaking her shoulder. They're here. The Vrek Syndicate. And they brought an army. Jiwoo scrambled to her feet. Outside the cave, she could see lights in the sky. Dozens of vehicles approaching. The poachers had found the colony. The matriarch roared. The sound was like thunder. All the Valkyries responded, preparing to defend their home. But Jiwoo could see the weapons on those vehicles. Energy nets, sonic cannons, capture pods. The dragons were powerful, but they had never faced this kind of organized attack before. We have to help them, Jiwoo said. How? Haesung asked. We're 3 humans against a military force. Biol moved to stand beside Jiwoo. The dragon's scales were glowing bright with determination. Other young Valkyries gathered around them. Sujin emerged from her cave carrying equipment she had saved from her research days. We're not alone, Jiwoo said. We have each other, and sometimes that's enough. The first vehicle landed at the canyon entrance. Armed poachers poured out. The leader was the same reptilian alien from before. He laughed when he saw the dragons gathered to fight. Look at this, an entire colony. We'll be rich beyond imagination. He pointed at Biol. And there's my escaped prize. Time to come home, little dragon. Jiwoo stepped forward. You're not taking anyone, foolish human. You can't stop us, watch me. Biol opened its mouth and plasma breath erupted. The blast was stronger than before, more controlled. The young dragon had been practicing. Wild baby dragon remains by human woman's side. 24-7 1 week later, Jiwoo stood on the landing platform of the research station. She had returned voluntarily, much to everyone's shock. Beside her stood Biol, now fully grown with wings that cast shadows across the ground. The dragon's presence made several security guards step back nervously. But Biol stayed calm, pressed close to Jiwoo's side as always. Commander Kang waited for them with her arms crossed. Behind her stood a massive ship with the emblem of the Galactic Council. A tribunal had arrived on Veridax 7, Dr. Park, Kang said coldly. You have caused quite the disruption. I had to, Commander. The Valkyries are in danger. Mining operations will destroy their habitat. Poachers are hunting them. Someone had to stand up for them. And you decided that someone should be you? A new voice spoke. A tall alien with silver fur and cold blue eyes descended from the tribunal ship. I am Ambassador Rindal of the Felixian Empire. I have come to address this situation personally. Jiwoo met his gaze without flinching. Then let me present my evidence. Evidence? Rindal laughed. It was not a kind sound. Of what? That you have domesticated a wild animal? That proves nothing except that humans are emotionally unstable. The Valkyries are not animals. They are sapient beings who deserve protection under galactic law. Rindal's expression turned serious. You claim they are sapient? Those are dangerous words, Dr. Park. The legal definition of sapience is complex. If you cannot prove your claim, you will be charged with interference in indigenous ecosystems and violation of research protocols. You could face life imprisonment. I understand the stakes, Jiwoo said, but I also understand the truth. And the truth is worth fighting for. Kang stepped forward. Ambassador, with respect, Dr. Park has been one of our finest researchers. If she believes she has evidence, we should at least review it. Very well, Rindal said. You have 3 days to prepare your case. The tribunal will convene then. If your evidence is insufficient, you and your creature will be taken into custody. The next 3 days were chaos. Jiwoo worked day and night organizing her documentation. Haesung helped her prepare the presentation. Sujin arrived from the canyon with additional research. Even Taemin, who had been angry with her for months, came forward to offer his support. I thought you were crazy, Taemin admitted. But I've seen your footage. Those cave paintings, the light songs, the way they teach their young. Jiwoo, this is real. This is revolutionary. Through it all, Biol never left her side. The dragon slept outside her quarters. It followed her to the preparation rooms. When Jiwoo worked late into the night, Biol would rest its head on her desk, keeping her company. Several times Jiwoo tried to get the dragon to rest somewhere more comfortable, but Biol refused to move more than a few meters away. On the morning of the tribunal, Jiwoo stood in front of the mirror. She looked tired, scared, but determined. Biol came up behind her and made a soft rumbling sound. I know, Jiwoo said quietly. Whatever happens, we face it together. The tribunal chamber was packed. Scientists from the research station, military officers, representatives from dozens of alien species. All had come to see if a human woman could prove that dragons were sapient. Ambassador Rindal sat at the center of the judging panel. Beside him were 2 other ambassadors, one from the Korthan Collective and one from the Praxi Union. All 3 looked skeptical. We will begin, Rindal announced. Dr. Jiwoo Park, you claim that the indigenous species known as Valkyries are sapient. Present your evidence. Jiwoo activated the holographic display. Images filled the chamber. The cave paintings with their historical records. The mathematical patterns in the light songs. Footage of adult Valkyries teaching young ones complex hunting strategies. Video of their evening gatherings where they shared memories and emotions. The tribunal watched in silence. When the presentation ended, Rindal spoke. Impressive. But many animal species display complex behaviors. Tool use, social structures, even basic artistic expression. This does not prove sapience. To qualify as sapient under galactic law, a species must demonstrate self-awareness, abstract thought, moral reasoning, and the ability to create symbolic communication. I can prove all of that, Jiwoo said, but not through recordings. The Valkyries need to speak for themselves. Excuse me? I've arranged for representatives of the Valkyrie colony to appear before this tribunal. They will demonstrate their intelligence directly. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Rindal silenced everyone with a gesture. You brought wild predators here? To the station? They came willingly. With an escort, Jiwoo gestured to the entrance. If the tribunal will allow it. After a tense moment, Rindal nodded. Very well. Let us see these supposed sapient dragons. The chamber doors opened. The matriarch entered first, her massive form making everyone gasp. Behind her came 3 elder Valkyries, their scales showing age and wisdom. Baeol moved to stand between the wild dragons and the tribunal, serving as a bridge between 2 worlds. The matriarch looked directly at Rindal. The great dragon's scales began to glow with patterns. The patterns formed shapes in the air. Mathematical equations. Geometric proofs. Then the patterns shifted to show images. The history of the Valkyrian people. Their struggles. Their triumphs. Their understanding of the universe. The tribunal watched in awe. One of the elder Valkyrians began to resonate, creating sounds that formed a kind of music. But within the music were meanings, concepts, ideas being communicated directly to the minds of everyone present. Jiwoo felt tears on her face. The Valkyrians were sharing their culture, their philosophy, their moral code. They spoke of honor, loyalty, family, sacrifice. They spoke of the bond between beings who choose to stand together against the darkness. When the display ended, the chamber was silent. Finally, Ambassador Rindal spoke. His voice was shaking. I have never seen anything like this. Do you understand now? Jiwoo asked. The Valkyrians are not animals. They are people, different from us but no less real, no less deserving of protection. One of the other ambassadors, the representative from the Korthan Collective, stood up. This could have been trained, rehearsed. How do we know these creatures truly understand what they are communicating? Before Jiwoo could respond, something unexpected happened. Ambassador Rindal stood up and walked toward the matriarch. The dragon could have killed him easily, but she remained still, watching him with intelligent eyes. Ask me, Rindal said to the dragon. Ask me anything. Prove to me that you understand. The matriarch's scales glowed. Patterns formed in the air. The patterns showed Rindal's homeworld, his family, his daughter who had died in an accident. The dragon was reading his memories, his emotions, and responding with empathy and understanding. Rindal fell to his knees. You know my pain. You understand loss. The matriarch touched her head gently to his, a gesture of comfort, of shared grief. In that moment, the tribunal was one. Jiwoo knew it. Everyone in the chamber knew it. But before the final decision could be announced, alarms blared throughout the station. An urgent message came through on the communication system. This is Vrek Syndicate Commander Throck. We have seized control of the tribunal ship. If you do not hand over the Valkyrians immediately, we will destroy this station and everyone on it. The chamber erupted into panic. Through the windows, they could see armed ships surrounding the station. The poachers had made their move. Commander Kang immediately took charge. Security teams to defensive positions. All civilians to shelter. We can fight them, Haesung said, checking his weapon. We're outnumbered 10-1, Kang replied. And they have military-grade weapons. We'll be slaughtered. Jiwoo looked at Baeol. The dragon's scales were glowing bright with anger. The matriarch and the elder Valkyrians were preparing to fight as well. You don't have to do this, Jiwoo said to the wild dragons. You can leave. Escape while you can. The matriarch made a sound that resonated through the chamber. Baeol translated through gestures and emotion. The meaning was clear. We do not abandon our own. The human woman stood for us. Now we stand for her. Then we fight together, Jiwoo said. Rindal stood up, his earlier skepticism gone. No, I will not allow this. These magnificent beings will not die because of our failures. He activated his communication device. Commander Throck, this is Ambassador Rindal. I am coming to negotiate. There is no negotiation, Throck's voice crackled back. Only surrender. Then you will have to kill a Galactic Council ambassador, and that will bring the full might of the Council down on your organization. Is that what you want? There was a long pause. Then Throck spoke again. You have 1 hour. As Rindal prepared to board the captured ship, the matriarch moved to follow him. The dragon would not let him face the danger alone. Rindal looked at the great dragon with something like wonder. You would protect me, even though we just met? The matriarch's meaning was clear. You honored our grief. We honor your courage. Jiwoo, Baeol, and the other Valkyrians insisted on coming too. Haesung and a squad of security officers joined them. Together they boarded a shuttle and approached the captured tribunal ship. Inside, Commander Throck waited with his mercenaries. The reptilian alien smiled when he saw them. How touching. Humans and dragons coming to die together. We're not here to die, Rindal said. We're here to offer you a... Wild baby dragon remains by human woman's side. 24/76 months had passed since the tribunal. Veridac 7 had transformed from a backwater research outpost into one of the most important worlds in the galaxy. The research station had been expanded into the Valkyrin Human Cultural Exchange Center, a place where two species learned from each other and built a future together. Jiwoo stood in her new office overlooking the canyon where the main Valkyrin colony lived. Her official title was Ambassador to the Valkyrin people, but she preferred to think of herself as a friend, a sister, a bridge between worlds. Biol lay on the floor beside her desk. The dragon was magnificent now, fully grown with a wingspan of 30 meters, scales that shone like stars, eyes that held ancient wisdom. Yet despite its size and power, Biol still chose to stay close to Jiwoo every single day. When she worked, the dragon rested nearby. When she traveled, Biol flew beside her. At night, the dragon curled around her quarters, keeping watch. People from across the galaxy had come to study their bond. Scientists wanted to understand how such a connection was possible, how a human woman and a wild dragon had become inseparable. Jiwoo always gave the same answer. It's not complicated. We chose each other, and we keep choosing each other. Every day, a knock came at her door. Haesung entered, now promoted to captain of the Exchange Center's security forces. Behind him came Tae-min, who had been appointed head of xenobiological research. You're needed in the main hall, Haesung said. Another delegation has arrived. Another one? Jiwoo sighed. That's the 5th this month. Your story has inspired a lot of people, Tae-min replied. Every species in the council wants to know if they can form honor bonds with other creatures on their worlds. Jiwoo stood up. Biol immediately rose as well, stretching its wings. The dragon would follow her to the meeting, as always. The main hall was filled with dignitaries from the Korthan Collective. They had brought with them data on several species from their home worlds that displayed complex behaviors. They wanted Jiwoo's help in determining if those species might be sapient. As Jiwoo reviewed their data, she realized something wonderful. The protocols she had developed for studying Valkyrians were being used across the galaxy. Dozens of species previously dismissed as animals were being re-evaluated, and humans were leading the effort. Why humans? The answer had become clear over the past months. Humans had a unique capacity for empathy across species lines. Other intelligent species in the galaxy tended to judge intelligence based on their own standards. But humans looked deeper. They recognized different forms of consciousness, different kinds of wisdom. After the meeting, Jiwoo walked through the Exchange Center gardens. Biol walked beside her, matching her pace perfectly. They passed a group of human children playing with young Valkyrians. The sight made Jiwoo smile. Things have changed so much, she said to the dragon. Remember when we were hiding in that old mining facility? Scared and alone? Biol made a soft rumbling sound. The dragon's meaning was clear. Never alone. We had each other. Yes, Jiwoo agreed. We did. They reached the cliff edge overlooking the main canyon. Below, the Valkyrin colony thrived. Hundreds of dragons lived there now, no longer threatened by poachers or miners. Young ones learned to fly under the guidance of elders. Adults created beautiful light songs every evening. It was everything Jiwoo had fought for. Ambassador Rindal approached from behind. He had changed dramatically since the tribunal. The cold, skeptical alien was gone. In his place was someone humble and curious. Beside him walked a young Valkyrin with silver scales. Good evening, Ambassador Park, Rindal said. Just Jiwoo, please. You know I hate formality, Rindal smiled. Very well, Jiwoo. I wanted you to meet Shimmer. She has chosen to honor bond with me. The silver Valkyrin touched her head gently to Rindal's hand. The ambassador's eyes showed deep affection. I never understood, Rindal admitted. What you had with Biol, I thought it was obsession. Unhealthy attachment. But now I know, when you find a kindred spirit, when you meet someone who sees your soul and accepts it completely, you cannot imagine living without them. The matriarch told me something once, Jiwoo said. She said that freedom means nothing without the freedom to choose devotion. Biol stays with me not because it must, but because it wants to, and I stay with Biol for the same reason. Has Biol ever wanted to leave? Rindal asked. To live with its own kind? To raise young, Jiwoo looked at her dragon. It was a question she had wondered about herself many times. Biol could have everything: status in the colony, a mate, a family of its own. But the dragon always chose her. I've asked, Jiwoo admitted, many times. But Biol says that I am its family. The most important one. Everything else is secondary. Biol pressed its head against her shoulder, confirming the statement. Your Earth has a saying, Rindal said, about dogs loving their humans more than they love themselves. But I think that saying misses the point. True devotion is not about loving someone more than yourself. It's about loving someone as much as yourself. About seeing another being as essential to your existence as breathing. That's beautiful, Jiwoo said, and accurate. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the canyon in gold and purple. More humans and Valkyrians gathered to watch together. Some were honor-bonded pairs. Others were simply friends. All were part of a new future. A message chimed on Jiwoo's communication device. She read it and felt her heart skip. The United Nations is sending a delegation. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations with 17 newly recognized sapient species, all discovered through human-led honor-bonding initiatives. 17? Taemin had joined them on the cliff. That's incredible. Just 6 months ago, the galaxy thought we were emotionally unstable. Now we're leading the most important scientific breakthrough in history. It's not about us being better than other species, Jiwoo said firmly. It's about us being different. We don't try to make other beings fit into our definition of intelligence. We meet them where they are. We respect their nature while recognizing their consciousness. Sujin arrived, slightly out of breath. Sorry I'm late. I was helping the matriarch design a new section of the cultural center. You won't believe what she's planning. Educational facilities where Valkyrian young and human children can learn together. She says if our species are to build a future, we must start with the next generation. The matriarch is wiser than all of us, Jiwoo agreed. As darkness fell, the evening light song began. Every Valkyrian in the canyon started to glow. Their scales created waves of color and pattern that flowed through the colony. Humans watched in awe. Some had seen this dozens of times but never grew tired of it. Biol's scales began to glow as well. The dragon added its voice to the greater song. Jiwoo could feel the emotions flowing through the light. Joy, pride, hope, gratitude. The Valkyrians were celebrating. Not just their survival, but their future. Images formed in the light. Stories being shared across the colony. And there, in the center of the patterns, Jiwoo saw herself. The Valkyrians were telling the story of the human woman who had saved one baby dragon and, in doing so, saved them all. Tears ran down Jiwoo's face. Biol nuzzled against her, making comforting sounds. I didn't do anything special, Jiwoo whispered. I just couldn't walk away from someone who needed help. But that was everything. That simple act of compassion had changed the galaxy. It had proven that different species could love each other, trust each other, build futures together. A week later, Jiwoo received an invitation that made her laugh. The Galactic Council wanted to create a new division called the Companion Corps. Humans and their honor-bonded partners would serve together, traveling to new worlds and helping establish communication with potentially sapient species. They want us to be explorers, Jiwoo told Biol, to find other beings like you. Other species that have been overlooked or misunderstood? Biol's scales glowed with excitement. The dragon had always loved adventure, and the idea of helping others the way Jiwoo had helped it resonated deeply. So what do you think? Jiwoo asked. Want to see the galaxy? Biol's answer was immediate. Wherever you go, I go. Always. On the day of their departure, the entire colony gathered to see them off. The matriarch approached and touched her head to both Jiwoo and Biol. The gesture carried deep meaning. You are our heart, our hope, our proof that different worlds can become one family. Commander Kang, who had once tried to separate them, now shook Jiwoo's hand warmly. I was wrong about you, Dr. Park. You saw something the rest of us couldn't. You saw the person inside the dragon. I just saw Biol, Jiwoo replied. That's all. Just Biol. Haesung, Taemin, and Sujin came to say goodbye. They would stay on Veridax 7, continuing the work of the Cultural Exchange Center. But they promised to stay in touch. You're a legend now, Taemin said. The woman who proved that love transcends species. That bonds can form anywhere, between anyone, as long as there's genuine respect and trust. I'm not a legend, Jiwoo protested. I'm just someone who found a friend. You found more than that, Sujin said softly. You found family, and you showed the galaxy what's possible when we open our hearts to those who are different from us. Jiwoo climbed onto Bayal's back. It was something she had done thousands of times,